Alright, today we're going to do, in the oven, this is, in my opinion, the most underrated cut of beef in the supermarket, or at the meat market. Angus chuck roast. Doesn't even have to be grass-fed. I just like the flavor of the meat better. The fat's a little healthier for you too, and has more protein. You don't have to get the Angus, but chuck roast can be used for stews, and in my opinion, it is the best cheesesteak. Basically, it's a pulled beef cheesesteak. So that's what we're going to do with this. But normally I would do it on the smoker. My smoker's out of commission. I usually do it for, depends on the size. This is 2.4 pounds. That would normally be about a good 6-7 hours on the smoker at about 200 degrees. We're going to do it in the oven, which I've never done before, at about 250. So I'm thinking 5-6 hours. It's kind of an experiment, but I know it's going to come out awesome. So what we're going to do first is we're going to give it a nice rub. Going to coat it in olive oil, and then I have a mix of garlic powder, paprika, crushed red pepper, black pepper, salt, and a little bit of oregano. I did 2 tablespoons of salt, a tablespoon of crushed black pepper, about a quarter teaspoon of crushed red pepper, a teaspoon of paprika, and a tablespoon garlic powder. The oregano, you don't need it. I kind of like the bite it gives to it. So I think I put in about a teaspoon. It doesn't have to be exact. The salt, pepper, and the garlic powder are really the most important things. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this cut of beef a nice coat in olive oil. We're going to put that rub on it. And then I'm going to let it sit for a good 2 hours. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your ingredients for the rub all mixed up in a bowl. And we're going to give this a nice coating of olive oil. I use this foil pan later on, so I'm just going to store it in it for now. Cover it in saran wrap while the rub kind of soaks into it. Nice coating, get both sides real good. Try and get in those cracks. We're not going to trim any of the fat off this. It's kind of hard to tell. There's certain pieces of fat that aren't going to marbleize. Aren't going to render and melt down like that right there. But we're not going to mess with that. All right, just got a good coating on there. Sprinkle it on there. It's not rocket science. Just going to give it a good coating. Just make sure you have enough. You could always make more, but get the sides. It. Now I'm just going to take the rest of it, dump it on there. Yeah, I know it sounds like a lot of salt, but a lot of that's just gonna render out with the fat. It's gonna wind up in the bottom of this drip pan here. So now I'm going to cover this in saran wrap. I'm going to put it in the fridge. I'm going to let it sit for 2 hours. Alright, it's been in for 2 hours. I got the oven preheated to 250. And I'm just going to set it in. And I'm going to set the timer for 4 hours. Oh, let's do 3.5. Again, I usually do this in my smoker, but temperature should come out the same. So check it in 3.5. And what you want to do is keep it raised so all the fat drips off into a pan. So here it is. It's in the oven, uncovered. What we're going to do is we're going to cook it for 3.5 hours. I'm going to check it, and once it's starting to get really tender, we're going to wrap it in aluminum foil. But the reason we're cooking it bare like this is you want it to get a nice crisp on the outside. Once it develops that and it's starting to soften up, we're going to wrap it in foil, set it in that pan, and we're going to cook it for probably another 2 hours. You want it to be fall apart tender, so you can just shred it by hand, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright, so I let it go for 4.5 hours. It was starting to get a little soft, so I wrapped it in foil. And what I'm going to do is wait till it's starting to fall apart. Then I think I'm going to turn it up to about 300 and put it in a rack, unwrapped in foil, so I can get that nice browning and crispiness on the outside. So we'll check back. Alright, it's done. It went for much longer than I thought. But this is what I mean. Fall apart. See that? No, it's good. So, 4.5 hours. Then I wrapped it in foil. I let it go for another 2.5. Then I let it go for an hour at 300 degrees after I took it out of the foil. So, I'm going to get to the next step. I'm going to let this cool. I'm going to shred it. You need Cooper cheese. You don't need it, but that's the best cheese for a cheesesteak. So what we're going to do is let it cool. We're going to peel it, shred it part by hand. You're going to throw it in a frying pan just for long enough to melt the cheese with it. And then we're going to throw it on our bun for an amazing cheesesteak. That'll put Pat's and Gino's to shame. Well, that's not hard because they're both overrated. I lived in Philly for 7 years, so I know. Alright, so I will get back to you once this cools off. Alright. And here is the final step. It's real easy. What you want to do, fry some onions first. Get them nice and cooked. You don't want to cook the meat too much since it's already cooked. So what you want to do is cut it into nice thin slices, cross grain, and it'll just crumble. You don't want to shred it by hand because then you're going to be chewing on long strands in your sandwich. You don't want that. But it's really good. Throw your cheese in. Keep it on a low temperature. Just mix it around for a couple minutes so the cheese melts and everything warms up. And you're going to throw it on your roll. You want to have a decent roll for this. A lot of stuff you could do with the chuck roast. You can do wraps. It's great with eggs in the morning. Wraps, you could put some lime juice and a little sour cream. Throw your cheese in there. Good for tacos. But it's an excellent cut of meat. It's kind of like a cross between some really good brisket burnt ends and beef short ribs. So what we're going to do is we're going to just stir this up a little bit. said, I already cooked the onions first. And you just want this to warm the beef up nice. Get that cheese melted. I add a lot of cheese to my cheesesteaks. And what I used was, took a taco mix, shredded cheese, and then about 5 slices of Cooper Sharp. If you're not from the northeastern U.S., tri-state area really, you probably don't know what Cooper cheese is. It's a sharp American. It is the best American cheese that you can get. You can buy it online, but I think they charge like $13 a pound for it. It's crazy expensive. Locally, I get it for about $5 a pound. So that's getting pretty close there. Everything's getting nice and melted. Pretty much it. So turn it off. I'm going to slap it on the roll. And we are done. Enjoy. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe. Have a good night.